Have you checked the children? Your little master.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Long days and pleasant nights, fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the tower as Jaime and Fuego, and if it please ya, join me here for a bit of palaver on Hail to Stephen King. That's right, that's Reezy. Thank you so very much for being here on another Saturday here on the horror show. So pleased to have you. And this is a little bit of kind of sequel coverage and kind of preliminary coverage all at the same time, because yes, I have been very pleased with the reaction and just the amount of interest in the tier rankings that Cecil Laird and I have done. Ended up being 5 parts for all of the different 10 years at a time sort of Stephen King's novel work. And so we have plans to also do sequel coverage in that same S, A, B, C, D, F sort of tier for all of Stephen King's films, but similar to what I did with counting down every Cy King decade as far as books went, I thought to myself, well, I should probably count down all those theatrical movies beforehand and then do a proper tier ranking with Cecil afterwards, because whereas Cecil hasn't really read a lot of Stephen King content, he has a few like It and boy, I think he's read Carrie. Anyway, inconsequential. What is important is the fact that I wanted to do a countdown beforehand so that then him and I can get together and do a tier ranking. So the difference between the tier ranking and the countdown, countdown is where I will be counting down all 44 theatrically released Stephen King things. And so, for instance, the fact that The Night Flyer that I was rewatching recently, that debuted on HBO and then later on had some time in theaters from New Line Cinema because of the fact that it was a King book and it had weird King adaptation, and it had these strange European rights that they couldn't get figured out, which is why it ended up on HBO. So that's like that sort of thing not going to happen if it's a television event series, or if it's like a Netflix exclusive like a 1922 or a Gerald's Game. Unfortunately, those are not going to be here. There's going to be a separate countdown that I'm going to do that entails the miniseries, the direct-to-video stuff, which there was a lot of direct-to-video, mostly Children of the Corn. But so this is for like the most prestigious as far as a release goes, and I am including sequels as well, like Rage Carrie 2. That was a theatrical sequel, even if it wasn't based on King stuff. It was a theatrical thing related to the Stephen King property. Same with Pet Sematary 2. Same with Return to Salem's Lot. These were films that were released theatrically. Even A Good Marriage. Yeah, very small theatrical release. So just before you rake me over the coals with, well, you didn't include this, or why did you include this? That's at least how I am approaching this, everybody. Okay? And with 44 films to knock, this is going to be a 2-part video. So I'm probably going to just film it all here in one sitting. And since I've reviewed a lot of these movies already, this is really more so going to be kind of another tour through my videos, but also, just countdown of everything. So, oh boy. First and foremost, in my opinion, the worst theatrical Stephen King release that we've ever had, and limited theatrical releases also count here too. So if it debuted in theaters and then in turn went to home release, it's fair game. And yes, I know this is the cover for Urban Harvest, but the second Children of the Corn film, The Final Sacrifice is what I believe it was called. Yes, Children of the Corn 2 Final Sacrifice, I want to say is 92, yep, 92. I distinctively remember seeing the trailer for that when I was a kid, and it scared me, and I thought like I was the same age as that like little blondie who's the love interest of the kid who moves to Gatlin from out of town and whatnot. And so yeah, I was intrigued, and then I grew up and I watched it, and boy did it suck. The house falling on the person like I said, I'm not going to dwell extensensively, but Children of the Corn, for whatever reason, is that one franchise that just people keep coming back to over and over and over when it comes to Cy King stuff. And at the very bottom, at number 44, guys, I am going with, Final Sacrifice, Children of the Corn 2, yeah. Next up, we have a David Arquette film that received a very small limited theatrical release, and then it was in turn put out on the home medias. But next up, we have Riding the Bullets. Yeah. This had some decent enough reviews by a few people, and even here on the back, you've got scary, haunting, and surprisingly emotional Tobe Hooper. I'm not taking away the fact that this movie doesn't have its fans and doesn't have its occasional merits, but the performance by Arquette is way too over the top in my estimation, and the feels that we get from the son and mother connection are really overshadowed by just what feels to me like kind of paltry filmmaking. I'm trying to remember if Mick Garris did this one. I think he did. Yes, indeed, and this was a Mick Garris vehicle. So, yeah, then I've got a nice deluxe release of this too, but as far as, and it's like the script and the short story, but man, Riding the Bullet is one that just, as far as all of those different, there's like some gunk on this. Ugh. As far as all the different versions that I have, the best of the independent films made by my work since Stand By Me, says Stephen King on the front of that. I'm suddenly thinking of Cy King endorsing the Dark Tower movie, which, surprising to no one, is my next up at number 42. Now, a lot of people are probably shocked that I didn't just put this at the very bottom of the barrel, even below, Children of the Corn 2 and the aforementioned Riding the Bullet. But the thing is, even though I hate this movie, absolutely despise this movie, the performance of Idris Elba, even though he is not my Roland, and that's... Oh boy, how can I not turn this into a thing that it's already been turned into? I think his performance is good, even if he's not what I expected about Roland. Like, when that casting was made, it's a whole can of worms to really go into it. But then again, I didn't like the McConaughey casting either. So I got to give some props to the younger kid who played Jake Chambers. It's unfortunate that you can hear the tone and timbre of his voice being a little bit different between the reshoots and the original stuff. I mean, the kid was going through puberty, for God's sake. But the weird hodgepodge mishmash of, cherry-picking ideas from all 7 books. Well, technically we know there's 8 books, but the 7 main books, I do not like this movie, but just based on the prowess of Elba as an actor and also the performance from our young performer that played Jake Chambers, I couldn't rack this movie over the coals, at least in this countdown, quite as bad as a lot of people may have expected me to. And you're probably like, where's Dreamcatcher? Yeah, it's coming, man, it's coming. But next up here at 44, 43, 42, at 41, we have one of the strangest things I think Cy King ever did. Yeah, and this is a cool collector's edition that I think Scream Factory put together. But this movie sucks, dude. This movie is one of the most bonkers strange with the Oedipus Rex stuff with, dude and his mother. It does have that really, really pretty girl who I think was on, is it Alice Creech? I don't know. Well, in any event, the love interest of, I guess he would be, well, the main baddie really is the mother in my estimation, but, the love interest of her son, this other cat person, is, she's gorgeous. I'm trying to remember if she was from, I want to say Twin Peaks, maybe? I'm trying to remember, but in any event, yeah, this is coked out King in the 80s, having weird ideas, everybody. So take it for what you will. If you've seen, I'm a completist. I own every King adaptation, including the weird sequel stuff. But yeah, boy, Sleepwalkers is a slog, and it's just way too silly to be taken seriously. So 44, 43, 42, 41. At number 40, we have a film that I just recently reviewed, actually, for its anniversary, and it's Cat's Eye. Yeah, too bad this couldn't have been as enjoyable as that silly theme song. We've got dancing packs of cigarettes at one particular point. Just the whole Quitters Inc. is, with James Woods, while it's well done to a degree, it's, once again, it's too much of that silly King accord that was starting to happen in the 1980s with him. The Ledge isn't very bad, and the final story with the cat fighting the troll, that I actually like, but this is definitely the cheese that King was starting to find himself in, and also the fact that this anthology, which I think he scripted himself as well, if I remember correctly, yeah, screenplay by Stephen King, is too... I enjoy the meta, self-referential, the Easter eggs that we get in so much King stuff. I mean, that's what makes it fun as a CR, right? But when we've got Christine driving around and then Cujo chasing the cat and stuff, I don't know. I'm not big on this. If I want a cat story, I'll watch the one that is in Tales from the Dark Side, which I'm not including that sort of stuff in this list either, because that's got stories by a bunch of people. So that's number 40. Number 39, we have the third time they did Carrie, but technically the fourth time they tackled the property, because remember the Rage Carrie 2, which we still haven't seen on this list yet. So that at least sends you the message that I think this is inferior to even the Rage Carrie 2. This isn't bad per se, but the fact that despite a decent performance from Chloe Grace Moretz, this brought nothing new to the table at all. And in some ways, I thought she was a little bit too much of a, little cutie girl to be the role of Carrie. Her being picked on, it just didn't aesthetically make as much sense to me. And I mean, just like so many of these different films that were remakes of older King properties, not even just King properties. And in the early 2000s, they were really trying to, although I think this movie might have been in the 2010s, but inconsequential, that when you're going back to these properties, it's almost like a cover song that does nothing new or interesting. They did kind of do something a little more interesting with the Brian Fuller, I think it was, the NBC series, the Carrie made-for-TV thing that they were trying to use as a backdoor pilot for a series. Being television, that's not included in this countdown. We're having a separate one for the television and for everything else. But yeah, man, this movie just, it was almost like the equivalent of another thing that also had Moretz in it, which was Let Me In. I was like, Let the Right One In was so much better. De Palma's film is immensely better. The Rage Carrie 2 at least did something different, kinda. So I don't know, but that's what we have at 39, I believe. Is it 44, 43, 42? Okay. Next up, we have a film that I just talked about a little while ago, Good Marriage. This is based on the story from Full Dark No Stars, and I quite like that story. It's got a very just alluring and creepy sense of building dread, because you've got Joan Allen, and this is not a bad adaptation, but it just kind of defangs and declaws the story of this woman who realizes her husband very likely is a long operating serial killer. And yeah, I mean, the book just captures that feeling of her terror a lot better. Joan Allen's performance is good in this, as is Anthony LaPaglia, great Italian actor, and the both of them are good. But despite, I think this is R-rated too, but this just, I don't know. This is one of those instances where the source material just does it for me a whole lot better. And despite two good performances, I just didn't feel like the tone was captured quite as well in this. And also with the wedding sequence and some of the other stuff, they're trying to give you that false sense of, I don't know, things are a little more okay than they actually are. Maybe her husband isn't as terrible. I don't know, man. I don't know. Red team go. But next up we have King's sole and only directorial efforts, Maximum Overdrive. This is a great release of this too. That I'm trying to remember who actually was behind it. One of those Vestron video. Yeah, this movie has its charm. This is one of those guilty pleasure sort of King things. Trucks, which was the remake of this, that was exclusively for television, and therefore, yes, it's not included in this list. And boy, Trucks is a slog. This movie at least has that great AC/DC soundtrack. You've got Yeardley Smith of all people in this as the recent bride of another character, whatever. Emilio Estevez is fun. They kill children in this, which is a no-no. You've got the crazy King cameo at the beginning and the even crazier King trailer that he did, but this is not top tier King. This is, as I said, this is the kind of King cheese in the 80s that I can at least have more fun with. Yeah, and plus at least it's R-rated, and so it's trying a little bit more. This may surprise people that I have this coming up next at, I believe, 36, but Pet Sematary 2, I enjoy, even though, okay, I think King disowned it, if I recall correctly, just like he also disowned Return to Salem's Lot and some of those other sequels in the 80s to his iconic work. And despite Mary Lambert coming back and decently directing this is not that good. It's not the Pet Sematary sequel that I would want to see. I have an idea for that, actually. But, I don't know. Eddie Furlong is solid in this. There are some crazy... There's that car accident that is really quite nuts in this. And then, I mean, you've got Clancy Brown chewing up the scenery in this as the father of Edward Furlong's new friend, the sheriff guy who comes back, and he doesn't act. He's not quite like the Gage or oh goodness, Lewis's wife. But yeah, man. I mean, he's hamming it up. He's having fun. And for that reason, I can say that I have fun with Pet Sematary 2. And this is also another Scream Factory. They've got new 4K scan of the original, new audio commentary with Mary Lambert, new interview with actor Eddie Furlong. Oh boy, I didn't watch that particular part. I know he's had his ups and his downs, but I don't know. This was, despite not really digging this artwork in the front, this is an interesting return to Ludlow. And yeah, I don't mind Pet Sematary 2. When I was doing that Films That Forgot the Face of Their Fathers series, it included that film, and it included this next one that I believe is our 35 or 36. Anyway, it's all in order, guys. I'm counting them down for you. And yeah, this is a Larry Cohen movie. And it's very much a Larry Cohen movie. If you're into Cue the Winged Serpent, if you're into the stuff, this is a little bit more on the serious side, but it still has a great performance from Michael Moriarty. And when I was doing the Films That Forgot the Face of Their Fathers series that I talked about, this was one, along with Pet Sematary 2, where I was like, that actually wasn't that bad. I actually kind of like that. So, is this a great movie? No. Does it veer away from the One for the Road epilogue, and does it kind of fashion? I guess if you really want to be slightly forgiving, it can kind of exist. I mean, hey, there are other worlds than these, right? So it's a different level of the tower, it's a different turn of the wheel, and when I started thinking of those films that forgot the face of their fathers in that variety, whether it was the Sometimes They Come Back stuff, whether it was the Mangler sequels, whatever they may have been, I was a little more okay with it. And yeah, I just love Michael Moriarty, and I love Cohen, and there are some nice kills in this movie. There's some violence. Okay. I almost wanted to wait until the deluxe edition of this that comes out in October, but no, Cecil and I are like, let's bank as much content here in the coming months as we approach Dylan's New Nightmare as possible. So next up at, boy, we're in our mid-30s, but as am I in real life, but we've got Graveyard Shift, based on a terrific short story from Night Shift by Stephen King that was inspired by some work that he also did at a mill. This is about those guys going down into the bottom to clean over the course of the holiday weekend. It's been a hot minute since I've watched this one, but what I remember distinctively is the creepy concept, ambiance of everything, obviously, and just feeling very claustrophobic and trapped and stuff, but also the addition of this new character played by Brad Dourif, who, very similar to what I was talking about with Clancy Brown a little while ago, he gets to go just bat shizzle bonkers, and it's this exterminator guy. He's way over the top. This is another one of those movies where we're like, okay, the King adaptations are not going to be taken as seriously, but I like Graveyard Shift, man. That is a fun movie. Speaking of the Mangler, there we go, guys. Yeah, so this has a outrageous turn, and that seems to be the motif of the late 80s, early 90s of Stephen King, is the stuff had to be like, there had to be some sort of over-the-top performance for whatever reason, and that does lessen the seriousness of the proceedings. And you've got Robert Englund in this as the foreman at this laundry press, and I mean, the thing that I love so much about this particular release is that they finally got together a 2K scan of the unrated cut. And I had remembered seeing this and it not being anywhere near as gory as the initial kill that we get of that older woman, and then obviously the stuff that happens with Englund at the very end. the added mythology of the virgins and the town and all this other stuff, that's where they lose me in this regard, and especially the girl from the laundromat, or the laundry press, because it's like a huge factory where they do like, you know, industrial laundry press and stuff like that. The woman who hooks up with England, it's outrageous and very obvious in that regard. Cecil and I actually reviewed this movie ourselves, but it's pretty well directed by Tobe Hooper of Life Force and Poltergeist, Texas Chainsaw Massacre fame. England is good, obviously based on King's terrific short story. Yeah, so many of those really iconic ones with like machinery and just, I don't know. King did a good job in Night Shift especially, man. Night Shift is my favorite collection of his shorts. So a lot of people are going to be shocked, especially with how much I have talked mad shit about this movie. I don't like this movie, okay? I feel like the effects are pretty bad. I think, what's-his-face, Morgan Freeman was grossly miscast as Kurtz. But the thing that pushes this movie way above the others is the fact that Lawrence Kasdan actually directed it fairly decently. And it's the cast that makes this so much more tolerable than the actual source material, because I do not like the source material. It's like one of my least favorite things that Stephen King ever wrote. But I love Thomas Jane, and I love Jason Lee, and oh boy, Fantastic, Timothy Oliphant. So between the trio of them, and then it's a good crew. It's a good crew in this movie, and despite all the other silliness that's going on, and I am kind of eating my own words a little bit with how much in a very early Hail to Stephen King video I just trashed this movie. This is not a good movie, and it's still not a favorite, but some of the other goofy, lower budget sort of stuff, I do at least appreciate this more so than unnecessary sequels, than remakes that brought nothing new to the table, and also some of the, like, even though this takes itself seriously, whereas stuff like The Mangler and Pet Sematary 2 and a few others, and Maximum Overdrive obviously did not, but I don't know, the actors are doing it, and especially some of those early on scenes with the camaraderie of those friends, that's what actually elevates this above some of the other schlock that is in this countdown. So what else we got? Oh, it's a film that I've mentioned a couple times here. So this is a Scream Factory double feature. It's kind of hard to track down now. It's got that TV version of Carrie that I mentioned that I think was on ABC, and they were trying to develop it into a television series. But then it has the insanely underrated The Rage Carrie 2, which The Rage Carrie 2, whereas all they have is a new audio commentary on that remake of Carrie, but The Rage Carrie 2, which came out in 1999, it's very much like Carrie meets American Pie. And since those sex comedies of the late 90s and early 2000s have kind of a soft place in my heart, and also the fact that they goth up Carrie in this, and it's got a terrific soundtrack, and it's got some good kills, especially some of the stuff that goes down when she rages at the party, the house party at the end of this. I had never seen The Rage Carrie 2 until I started doing that series of the films that forgot the face of their father, as I talked about before, and I actually quite like The Rage Carrie 2. I like it better than the Carrie remake, and as you can see, based on the films that came before this, in this countdown of the 44 theatrical releases by Stephen King Associated Properties, and if you can track this down, it sucks that it's a little on the pricey side, but that is a fun collector's item. Next up we have Cujo, a story I don't like very much either. It did a lot for world building, though, for just Castle Rock in general, being the second Castle Rock story. And the thing that elevates this, despite me not digging the story of infidelity, and also just the rabid dog stuff and whatever, the book at least did that better job, but Dee Wallace is a powerhouse in this movie when she actually gets in the obvious aforementioned situation, and for that reason, that performance alone pushes this way the hell up as far as ranking goes, as we are nearing the last few in this countdown. And I'm just gonna pick these up because this has been just kind of a weird situation trying to do this in the first place, but Okay. So, next up we have another great Scream Factory release, Silver Bullet. I must admit, I really kind of wish that we could have got that Don Coscarelli version instead, which I was really holding out hope for when I heard about, but you know, that they could have unearthed enough footage to maybe put something together, but they didn't. Coscarelli had, from what I've read, pretty much, and Coscarelli, Phantasm and Beastmaster fame, Bubba Hotep, terrific director. Yeah, he did most of the stuff with Corey Haim, and then they brought in a different director to finish the film and do all the werewolf stuff, and you know, it was creative differences. I love Cycle of the Werewolf. I feel like it's definitely an underrated gem that a lot of people haven't read. And whereas this is another one of those 80s King films that has just a bonkers character for whatever reason in Gary Busey, some of his ad-lib stuff is terrifically awful, and this is one of those guilty pleasures. And as well as the fact that there is some cool stuff with the werewolf. I especially enjoy the transformation scene in the church. I feel like that's really cool. And I identify with Haim and the fact that Haim, whatever. But Corey's character in this is one that I especially enjoy because of the fact that I remembered being a kid and wanting to go on adventures and wanting to fight the forces of evil, a la Monster Squad, stuff like that. And yeah, I really dig Silver Bullet, and I feel like it's underrated, needs a little bit more attention. Next up, as we continue along, we have Cell, and this is one where I'm like, man, John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson getting back together for a King adaptation, and in my estimation, one of the most underrated of the new millennium. I love the Cell book. I think it's awesome, man. And for the most part, this is actually pretty good and pretty faithful. Obviously, Samuel L. Jackson isn't exactly what you would expect for that particular character if you're familiar with the source material, but this was executed so well until King decided to butcher the ending and do something completely different for whatever reason, without spoiling things, and I'm not sure why. We did get Never Walk Alone, congrats to Liverpool, but nonetheless, I hated his decision to alter the ending in this regard, and for that reason, this could have ranked a lot higher if it just kept the consistency through the entire running time. Couldn't do it though. Then we have a very, very controversial movie. Yes, the newest version of Pet Sematary. That, while, okay, obviously ranked it higher than Pet Sematary 2, but not that much higher. I mean, a few selections, and as I said earlier, another turn of the wheel, you know? Everybody knows because they spoiled it in the trailer that it was going to be Ellie instead of Gage. Cool. I was up for that, actually. I'm not sure why they wanted to forewarn all of us about this so we were less pissed off, but nonetheless, for better or for worse, they did. And the relationship between Judd and Lewis not being the sort of father-son thing, which was so crucial to the book, and also the original version of the film, you know, from 88, 89, whenever it was, Mary Lambert's original. I really like Jason Clarke as an actor, though. I thought the little girl wasn't too bad, and I liked the Story Eyes writing and directing team. They had a different sort of darkness to this. However, it felt smaller in scale in some ways, too, especially the Micmac burial ground. Those wide sky shots that they had in the original film, this felt smaller and darker, and just, I don't know, I like the hinting at some of the Wendigo stuff. There's aspects about this movie that I like. I do prefer the alternate ending, I must say, but at the end of the day, this was a missed opportunity to make something pretty cool, because every 30 years or so, I'm okay with people taking another stab at a franchise and just, you know, seeing what they can do with it differently. This was a swing, that was a swing and a miss, though, if I'm gonna be fair. As we round through the 20s, and yes, I know I've stopped saying the actual number of stuff because, yeah, in any event. George Romero, The Dark Half. George Romero, as many people know, very, very famously did Creepshow, The Psy King. It's terrific. Love that film. It's obviously not, it's not going to be in this first half, that's for damn sure. But this is one where I think, despite really liking Timothy Hutton, I believe is the name of the actor, yeah, even though he does a great dueling performance in this, this story has just never really done it that much for me, period. And so I think for that reason, I don't know, this is one that with the reteaming of Romero and King, I feel like the expectations were a lot higher in that regard, but yeah, for that reason, I dig the character of Thad Beaumont, as I hope I mentioned, and I enjoy some of the meta-ness, and I know this was him also trying to put Bachman to bed and whatnot, but, I mean, the sparrows are flying again. I dig some of that stuff. I like the friendship with the older lady, the colleague, the teacher of Thad's, but at the end of the day, there are better King stories and there are better King adaptations that we are about to do. And as we round through our last couple here, we got Firestarter. This is a book that the book is obviously better, but once again, it's for me, and with King's first, 8-10 novels or so, it's definitely not one of the strongest ones. I dig the psychedelic aspect of it, and I do contend, at least in this regard, that despite the vast miscasting of him as Rainbird, I just like George C. Scott so much as an actor that even though he had no business playing a Native American character, this assassin-y type guy, his scenes with Little Drew and Ms. Barrymore were actually very good, and you kind of bought in to the sort of shade that he's casting and, just trying to manipulate her and everything like that. I also quite like the performance from the father in this. The name of the actor, I want to say it's David Keith, maybe? But, yeah, and you also get Heather Locklear briefly. But this was definitely one of those, this was as we were segueing into the cheese factor of King, where just stuff that worked on paper didn't necessarily have the execution that a lot of people would have liked. I'm trying to remember, I think there was some very famous peeps who did the music to this. Yeah, Tangerine Dream did the music to this. So I know that's one that I think people hold an affinity for who grew up at that time. Especially if you were a kid, when you saw Firestarter, you were probably just like, yeah, man, absolutely. I want to be Drew. I just obviously don't want to lose my paw or anything like that. So as we are nearing our last few, so that was that would have been 25, I want to say. So we are down to 24 and 23 respectively, and then the other 22 films will be counted down in the sequel video to this. But my 24 is Christine. Christine is another one that just functions so much better on paper than it did in the execution, but we have great performances in this despite the cheesiness of the concept and kind of the silliness of it. I didn't like the fact that they de-emphasized the ghost aspect and that it was just more of haunted car as opposed to, the transformation of Arnie and everything is still done very well here. And even though Carpenter admitted it was a pay gig after he was disappointed with how the thing was received, the soundtrack bangs to this, man. And I will also never forget the scene where, our dude with the mullet, and I guess my hair's not really too far off currently, but yeah, where he gets chased down and run over and stuff. And there are some, I do love the scene where, as I put this to the side of this big ass stack of movies over there, but and I also do love the backwards camera trick where they crush the cars and then they just kind of showed the film in reverse to show the car was crushed and then it was able to just regenerate itself. So Carpenter directed this well, and it scored incredibly well, which is the reason why it's as high as it is, because otherwise if those two things weren't in place along with decent enough performance from our trio of leads, that would be much further down on the list. But I do contend that I think Christine is overdue for a remake, as some may find that to be blasphemous. Sorry, guys. So our last one at number 23, and I would imagine there's a few who are surprised that I put this as high as I do. Got Secret Window. I know Johnny Depp has become kind of a controversial dude. I think this is David Coop, if I remember correctly, too. Yeah, it is. His performance is great in this movie, man, as just the cagey and the kooky and stuff. This was when he was really just selling that sort of acting and that sort of performance and stuff. John Turturro is great in this as our antagonist who comes and says that his story has been plagiarized. I dig this movie, guys. I really, really do. It's not top tier King, but it's definitely very solid mid-tier King adaptation, which is why it's sitting right smack dab in the middle at number 23 on our countdown here. And I dig this movie, and I also dig the altered ending. Some people did not enjoy that. I actually dug the hell out of it. So let's just count in reverse really quickly. So 23, we have Secret Windows. 24, Christine. 25, Firestarter. 26, The Dark Half. As we go back through this. 27, we have the Pet Sematary remake, which I need to give that one another shot sometime soon. Cell. Silver Bullet. I do not have enough room in my hands for all of these. Cujo. We have the Rage Carry 2. Then we have Dreamcatcher. Then we have the Mangler. Then we have, oh, this is so much shit. Graveyard Shift. Then, this is not doable, guys. I gotta set this shizzle down. That's the tough thing with this sort of countdown. Then we have Return to Salem's Lot. And we have Pet Sematary 2. Then we have Maximum Overdrive. Then we have A Good Marriage, which is at least worth a shot. If you're a fan of the novella, I say check it out. Can't really recommend Carrie, that particular version of it. Then we have Cat's Eye. Then we have, oh boy, Sleepwalkers. Yup, Sleepwalkers, everybody. Then the travesty that was The Tower. Then we have Riding the Bullet. And then lastly, thankfully, the film that made people realize Children of the Corn is better as direct-to-video. Once again, this is the Urban Harvest cover, but I have 6 Children of the Corn movies on here. Final Sacrifice, Urban Harvest, The Gathering, Fields of Terror, 666, Isaac's Return, and then Revelation. And then there's still, even beyond that, the remake, there is Genesis, there is the Runaway, and then this new one, which is like a prequel. It's about to come out. Thankfully, the last Children of the Corn that was released to theaters is, yeah, pretty bad. And the bottom of the barrel, at least in my estimation, on the list of theatrically released Stephen King films. So thank you for bearing with this very lengthy video. I've been Jaime and Fuego, and you can find moi on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube. I do have my own personal YouTube channel, which is called Fuegotainment, and yes, I do all the non-spooktacular coverage on there, so please check that out, and like, share, subscribe, support, means a hell of a lot. Second part of this video will be coming at you next week, so stay tuned to that, and then later on here in the summer, a tier ranking from Cecil and I of all of these theatrical films, and then in turn later on, as 2020 commences, as crazy as it's been, we will do mini-series made for TV films, direct-to-video, stuff like that. So stay tuned, and until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, cinemigos, constant readers and viewers here alike, say thank you. Make sure to check out the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group for more palaver, and until next time, remember to stay scared, and read Stephen King? Yeah, I always recommend reading Stephen King instead, but I guess watch Stephen King too. That can be fun.